Hello there, one more attempt, okay? Because this is my third attempt of the day and it's hard. So I've got one more sip of coffee in here. Then I'm going to try and somehow convey to you how things are going on this side. Because also in the failed attempts, I'm actually picking up on things as I try to talk about things, and find that it is hard or almost impossible to organize sentences, which is silly. I'm not really judging myself harshly, but still, yeah. That was my coffee. So here I am. I think I am much better. I feel much more alive now, although it tends to be a bit of a sinus wave. It's helping that there is quite a bit of sunlight outside. At the moment there is a cloud in front of the sun, but also I can see better, what this looks like on the screen with less harsh sunlight when the sun isn't shining full on me, which of course I love. I like to see the sun because we've had a couple of really dismal days and, with grey fog plastered over everything. And it was the first day or so it was fine because it was frosty and a bit nippy and it was like really wintry. And then after that it just turned into a squalid grey sense of immobility and cold and horrible. So, and what with my things going on. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out new ways to do this, really. And that's part of I'm basically trying to find new ways to express myself in this manner, in this context, of YouTube and my channel and all that. And it'll sort itself out. I mean, I'm quite sure that if I just keep at it and listen to what it is that I'm trying, that's trying to come out, that's basically it. I have managed to talk, tell stories, pass on information in certain ways for as long as I can remember. But it doesn't really fit who I am now. And that's it. That's the main issue of the main friction. There's I can almost see it like the two halves of me. One of them is my true nature, whoever, the me that is my vibration, that's my emotional life, that sees things, that registers, that type of consciousness. And that person, that me, has never really had a voice in any of my activities, anywhere, ever. So, except maybe when I was drawing or writing poetry, those two things tend to be much more private. And so towards the outside, what it is that I tend to do is the other half is be rational and be ish, try to be objective and try to show that as far as I'm concerned, there's room for all sorts of perspectives and be neutral, really. Being neutral was a state of, I suppose, progress from where I was at first, which was impossible resistance and pain, really. And so that's a story that isn't really limited to any particular period of my life. And it is lightening now. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. In my previous video attempt, I was going into rather a bit of detail because that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of particular episodes in my life when I had my throat infection when I was 12 and all the consequences from that. And what I have been doing recently is importing Shakti energy into my throat area, which is a very interesting adventure by itself. And I am getting results, obviously, because everything's like kind of changing. But so this is basically a Shakti energy work update, I think, only less objective, probably, hopefully, than the ones before, because I am not looking at it from the outside now. The Shakti is really coming into my personality for the first time. Yes, that's really, okay, that's a helpful way of looking at it, and that way I will probably be able to plod on a bit more. So there have been numerous episodes during my life where, especially when I was very young, so before I was, actually as long as my mother was alive, basically. So from 0 to 28, to my age, 28, when she passed away in 95, there have been numerous episodes where I was basically silenced. And, not only by my mother. The phase where I had my throat ache, there were actually teachers in the school there that had a kind of, had a go at me because I didn't conform to their ideas of how you were supposed to work, and probably because they were used to a disciplinarian approach, they treated me in a way that was normal for them, and I was in a mess then. And I have been in that mess after that. I have been in that mess before that. And it has been a huge mess. There has been in silence, in this type of silencing, there is no room left for who you really are. So this is emotional. Yeah, it's very intense. It's a very intense process. And it just comes out, and everything and so that here I am, sharing the thing. It's what I do. There's a level about the Shakti work where I can really see very clearly also that, as before, there's areas in my body, or there were areas in my body where there's a problem of some sort of, the body has a problem with exhaustion or lack of energy. If you bring the Shakti energy into that, it takes quite a bit of focus. And that's, of course, something that I've talked about in my Shakti energy updates quite a bit already. And that's essential. It's the thing, the main thing about the whole Shakti energy work is figuring out where your energy can go, that you have to know. You're the director of your movie, okay? You have to decide this is where we're gonna go, and the Shakti will come with you. That's huge. But before you can actually decide, so I have these 3 fingertips over here that are my problem area for, just for the purposes of having something to point at. In real life, what tends to happen is that there is a lot of numbness in and around the area that needs help, basically. And if it's numb, you can't tell what is going on anymore. So you tend to just live bypass style, around the outside. And that's what we're trying to undo step by step, bit by bit, with Shakti energy work. So in here, I have found out so far that actually with my throat infection that's basically still here and still now, there are, what was I thinking earlier? There are at least 4 channels going up through your throat and neck area that you can sort of look at separately and think of separately and focus on separately. using Shakti energy. So asking the Shakti energy to come along into, so the more you focus on a particular area in a particular way, the better. And the more progress you're finally going to get eventually. Eventually, hopefully, you know? So the 4 channels, the bone structure, so your backbone basically in your neck area like that, all the, whatchamacall those, vertebrae, right? Nervous channel going along your spine, so your spinal cord, right? And everything that's, so that's a really important one, of course, because that's, I think, the first one that I accessed. And I have accessed that with Shakti energy already quite a number of times early in 2019 when I just got started with this stuff. As soon as I had, what I did in the first few updates as well, what I talked about is basically following and sort of pushing the energy along your spine upwards, like so, step by step. So naturally you end up here as well. The third, and for me, really important area that I'm only just starting to access, and it's really interesting. It's kind of cool because the third one will be the one that connects your organs, and basically it ends and starts off again in your voice box. So your throat, the inside of your throat, okay? That's a really interesting area because it has everything to do with, funnily enough, expressing yourself and taking in either food or information. Both, of course. But those are very different processes. The whole, anatomical organism in here, it's all very tightly linked together. And in a way, you could say that I actually hear things differently now. I think that's true. I'm not really aware of it all the time yet. So it's, it still takes quite a lot of figuring out. And what I've basically done earlier this week, twice, and I'm trying to get back to it as, regularly, maybe once every 24 hours or so, is to get Shakti energy in my throat, really where my throat infection used to be back then, because I can remember how that felt. That has kind of, remembering the pain of what it was like then to have that infection, actually was like opening up the cells in there, have like perfect recall of what it was like back then. And it was like being strangled to all intents and purposes. It was not funny. So I actually managed, and I think that was on Monday or so, earlier this week, so the 21st or 20th of January, I managed to finally localize this numb area in there. And there was like, I don't know, a big stamp with where any type of energy would just move around. And it was, you couldn't see it. You couldn't really feel it anymore. It was just gone, Like it never existed. It was so silly. And so, because of course I knew what I was looking for, my memories and my mind, my brain were telling me, hang on, back a bit, and I'm sort of following my throat on the inside, with my Shakti, because I can more or less see myself in X-ray by now. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing all this for my throat. The whole 2019 Shakti energy work business has been in order to get at this. But I had to build it up. I had to do the heart area first, and I had to do the solar plexus first, and I had to do all sorts of things first before I could actually, get this far. So, yay me, I'm here, okay, it's happening. So the numbness, there's this area where you feel like, okay, it's not even cold anymore, which is what I used to describe it as in relation to the areas along the spine. Because it's much more emotional, it just felt very numb. And I felt like, okay, so here it is. Here, this is exactly where it is happening. And there's a fourth channel, okay? So I will get to that in a bit. Because this is basically very physical, it's not so much vibrational, it's very, very much like your actual, mechanism of talking and the resonance in your throat, in your head from talking and sound coming in and all that. So all that passes through there. And I found the actual location of the throat infection, and it was like, once I got the Shakti to be exactly in the right spot, it could pass inward. And of course, since this is an infection, it's some type of a bacteria that's sort of still living in there, which I am going to try and get to move out of my body. Of course, that's my intention. I want this all to be problem-free. I want to be able to express myself and all that. I don't want to have, tonsillitis and all that stupid stuff anymore, if possible. But I actually felt that the fiery sensation of the lava, if you like, of the Shakti energy, and it's not really that strong, but it's discernible. You can feel there's a very different, very clean, purposeful, unlimited, how Shakti is. That's how Shakti is. So it went into that problem area for the first time. That was on Monday, I think. And it's either Sunday evening or Monday evening, either one of the two. And so it was like there's a whole area, and it's I'm not sure whether it's actually physical or like chakra, but it's basically my throat chakra that I'm talking about. That's possible. It had to do a bit of a cleanse in that area. So it's like, it feels like I was going in from the back of my throat on the inside, okay? And then going into an area which is deep. So coming out like here, okay? I have no idea. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't have to. It's not about actual physical geometry anyway. But that made a huge difference. Even though it meant going back into those memories of those teachers and the way I felt. In a way, I've been kind of skirting around it because it's very unpleasant. Because it was triggering, I was being blamed again for things that I couldn't help, which is basically the story of my life. Where I am a Leo and I tend to just feel like, okay, so never mind. And everybody should be a sovereign human being, and why is it my fault that things, are the way they are? And they resented, the teachers at school resented strongly that I didn't work neatly enough and that I didn't present my work in a way that was presentable. I'd never learned. I was like, okay, so I was 13. And in many respects, in terms of my academic achievements, if you can call it that, or lack thereof rather, that was due to having been to, 6, 7 different schools as a child, my parents divorcing me, being in a foster home for 6 months with people who were completely different from my own parents, my mother being ill and having problems of all sorts that I couldn't really talk to, and all that. And all they could ever think of was throw that back in my face. Yeah, so thinking about those things now pisses me off no end. And it's so easy to go back to like, okay, so they didn't know me. They were just being stupid. It was not a very well thought out procedure, but they'd never had to deal with someone like me. And I didn't know how to deal with me, and my mother also didn't know how to deal with me. And what she did, basically, she was trying to help me back in those days. And after the infection and all that, I was really miserable when I was kind of, I was feeling, in principle, I was sort of battling the virus and it was getting better and all that, but I was having a hard time to, go back to school and things. And I didn't really have the courage. I didn't know what to say to those people. I didn't know how to go about things. I didn't know. They didn't help me. They didn't explain to me what it was that I really did wrong, which is, I think, something that happens a lot of times with kids. You shout at them instead of sitting them down and showing them this is how it's supposed to go, because then I can read what you write. If you just write scribbles and scratches, I can't see what you're saying. So instead of them telling me something like that, which I would have accepted because I wasn't a bad student, as long as you treat me normally. The whole thing was a trauma. It was horrible. Schools. So what my mum told me, she advised me, and it was the only thing she could think of, to do what we always refer to later as a Dale Carnegie. I will look up a link and stick him in the description. I've still got a booklet of his that I actually, have I got that in my cupboard over here? I don't think so. It's probably upstairs because I bound the booklet. It was falling apart. It's like an old little pocket book from the 50s and it fell apart. So I just kind of rebound it with tape and cardboard boxes and things. How to make friends and I don't know, something like that. It's a cute book and it's well written, and there's more of those. It's like he's written lots of those, and he's very famous, or used to be very famous in that circle. And it's all about listening to other people, what they're trying to tell you, doing what they ask. He's a sales rep. He's a salesman. So I was 13 years old. I had these loads of problems, okay, that nobody was paying attention to, that I didn't know how to express or ask for help about. And the only advice I got was to do a Dale Carnegie. Okay? It makes me laugh now because it was completely disproportionate, just like everything else I got from my parents, I think, in completely a different direction from anything that would have made a difference to the person you see here. And then again, what with my soul retrieval and all the other spiritual exercises and the Shakti energy work and all that, I suppose it was the only way to go, really. Because this is my life. It's weird. It has been weird and it will probably be weird forever. What can I say? So yeah, so I applied, I got explained what Dale Carnegie's ideas were like, and I took to them quite easily because it was all about being in harmony with the other guy. So I liked it and I applied it to my teachers, and they just went 180 on me, and I was their best mate all of a sudden. So I was like, okay, you guys, this is working. This is excellent. And I have done that on a regular basis afterwards with everybody who was in a position of authority, to the extent that it was actually possible. It was my trick. It was like a fabulous magic trick. I'm only realizing this just now, that I could just put in there and be this, charming, I suppose, personality that everybody liked and that they could easily engage with and have what they wanted from and all that. And there you were. Problems, no more problems. No more people trying to, rule you or suppress you out of existence or squash you or tear your eyes out and all that. So yeah, obviously I went all for that. I'm laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing. Maybe because then I don't have to, I don't want to cry about this. It was a nightmare for who this person inside me that had absolutely zero clue as to who to be or why or when or with whom. It was ridiculous, really. It was utterly, there was no point. I never learned anything about people from this approach. It was like opening up this big, wonderful jar of honey. You have these jars of honey that has a beeswax beehive piece inside of it. Sometimes in Turkish shops over here, they sell them like that. And I always go, ooh, that's nice, because it's so appealing with beeswax. And it's just wonderful. And it smells great, and beeswax candles and all that. I love me beeswax candles with that smell that it has. I once ordered a beeswax absolute, which is like an extract of the scent of beeswax. Oh, I think it was really expensive. I think I paid 25 euros for like 1 mil or something ridiculous like that. But it's utterly glorious and irresistible. Those things, essential oils and plants and witchcraft, that has actually sort of dragged my ass back into some sense of reality, into some sense of what life can be like for me. But then, of course, what to have is a relationship with a plant or a tree or the weather, and still not very much a great success at being a human being. So, yeah, it's actually working now. Now that I found the wavelength or the level of authenticity that I was kind of looking for, I suppose, I have to then, from in here, tell my brain where to go. Rather than having my brain think of the priorities and the things, and was supposed to be a Shakti energy work update, so we should be talking about how the focus and blur and the channels and all that. Oh yeah, the channels. The fourth channel. So I have bones, I have nervous system, spinal cord, okay? I have actual throat and attendant organs and all that. And there's a fourth channel at the front of us, like here. And it's really important. I'm not completely sure whether it's really a nervous system or a lymphic system or any of it, probably. Because it connects. The funny thing is, each time I work in here, where the lymph glands are and the, whatchamacall those? I don't know. Glands? No? The thyroid, is that the name? Yes, I think so. That has to do with your resistance to illness anyway. Obviously, it's closely linked to the infection in here, right? Makes sense. I can tell that. And each time I have stress or I'm scared, mostly in relation to people, or I am tired and I don't feel strong enough for what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, because I'm trying to do everything with my brain only, okay? Then all this goes on lockdown and I get tonsillitis and throat ache and it makes me feel horrible again. And by the way, for tonsillitis, lemon juice and ginger are your friends, okay? If that's something that you suffer from as well. So, this fourth channel at the front here, it connects definitely to the thyroid, all the glands and your immune, that's the word I was looking for, your immune system, which was compromised in a certain way to this particular extent, because I don't normally get ill very often. I don't have like flus all year long, or like lots of people do. Then again, I've never taken antibiotics if I could help it. One time only, for a tick in bites that I had that got infected, and I didn't get Lyme. Thank you. So, the interesting thing that I noticed when working with Shakti energy on this area over here was that there's a constant intermittent, but still constantly returning. How should I put that? A vibrational echo, or yeah, maybe a vibrational echo is a good term, between all this, what you're doing in here, and your solar plexus area. Quite a large area on top of and around my stomach. Maybe this, quite the size of my hand over. If I put my hand on my stomach area, in there somewhere, there's there's a vibrational link, a kind of a connection between the sense of self, of probably the body as it is in here, and the immune system going on in here. And whenever that's, to the extent that that was challenged and or given a hard time and all that. So I suppose I'm basically, now that I have this tool where I can actually, it's a work in progress, but because I have this infection problem, I think everybody with my past, with my type of life history, you're going to get some type of a physical ailment, and actually it is your key to the problem is the solution. You have to bring something to the problem, something like Shakti, something like your own personal Shakti vibration that you can access in ways that I've talked about, already. You can bring that to this and you can actually transform, maybe that's a way of putting it, the problem into the solution, and then gain all sorts of knowledge that is applicable not only to me in this case, but also to other people in similar situations. And the more, what I'm hoping and dreaming at some point to get is to have more people do this actually, and maybe I'll have to go out there and teach it, I don't know, and who knows, but and this is also why I did the Shakti paths and all that, because that's one way of going about that. I will probably be investigating this a lot deeper. How to bring it into the world. How you can actually, instead of just doing Kundalini meditation where basically everything stays the same, it can still make you feel great, and you can get all sorts of energy, vibrational activity and life, happening to you, which is cool. There is always, depending on who you are and what you want, this is what I have to give, okay? If there is a real problem there, your body will tell you, and then maybe you can manage to do this in your own way and then transform this into your solution, and we can share in that, and so on and so forth, because problems we have plenty, all of us, so in the world. So that being said, I'm over half an hour in. I did a lot better once I got it figured out more or less how it linked to my emotional background. I actually did a lot better than I was expecting. So I'm going to go off to the local historical society later today and spend another couple of hours in front of the computer doing, basically really really inane type work, but it's of some use to those people, and that's fine. I have otherwise quite a bit of astrology that I've been involved in, which was another, lengthy haul of a business, but it was, I think it was worthwhile. I discovered a couple of new interesting aspects and things like that. So I may come back to that. Okay, so this is my Shakti work update as it stands for now. The work hasn't changed. The approach hasn't changed. The fact is that what with those 4 different channels in here and all the different layers and all the different organs, it's a lot of work. I'm just coming back to it over and over again because I want to move forward, and I'm leaving no stone unturned, right? So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming along for the ride again. And this will probably be it for this week, unless I, decide that astrology is still important to talk about tomorrow, which is Friday. Otherwise, it'll be Monday or Tuesday for us. Okay? So stay well and stay safe, and I'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.